of the class, as well as links to any websites or resources our presenter may refer to. A QR code will also be presented at the end of class, and we ask that you fill out the form or the survey to help us with the feedback, or we help us for the feedback for future classes. We do use the feedback to prepare for future classes and improve these classes. If you have any questions during the class, please enter them in the group chat. We will answer them either during the presentation or at the end of class. If there are any disruptions in the group chat, we will remove that person and proceed to delete any inappropriate comments, so bear with us if that does occur. Today, I have the pleasure of welcoming our presenter, Shelley Beck. Shelley has been a master gardener since 2023. She grew up in Southern California and moved to Houston in 1981 and has resided in Fort Bend County since 2008. Shelley spent over 47 years in technology services at Hewlett-Packard Enterprise before retiring in 2024. She retired to spend more time with family, which consists of 2 married children, 6 grandchildren, and 2 dogs. She also wanted to spend more time with the Master Gardener community, improve her golf handicap, and become a skilled pool player. She's still working on the latter too. Shelley became interested in plants working in a plant shop right out of high school. She's had some form of garden, mostly ornamentals, gardening every place she has lived, including apartments and condos. Real gardening started when she moved into her first home, and she has never stopped. While she loves all types of plants, she has developed a real passion for plumerias, and she loves propagating plants. So thank you, Shelley, for being here today, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Rochelle. And thank you, everybody, for joining us this afternoon. We're going to talk about container gardening, why and how you might want to do container gardening. So our agenda today, we're going to cover the benefits of gardening, and continue with how to make a container garden, how to care for your container garden. And we're going to focus a little bit on dealing with pests and how to repot. And then we'll have several examples and ideas for container gardening. So let's start with why you might want to choose container gardening. Remember, you can plant almost anything in a container. You might choose a container gardening because you are limited in space or time. Many people choose container gardening so they can take their favorite plants with them as they move. Container gardening provides gardening opportunity for apartment dwellers who may only have a balcony where they can grow plants. And using containers allows you to have better control of the environment that your plants are in. And it can extend the growing season by moving plants indoors or starting plants indoors and then moving them outdoors. And it can add beauty to a hardscape, patio, front porch, what have you. So let's start with the container. You can make a lot of different things containers. You need to have a container that will handle the size of the plants you want to plant, and you can grow in all kinds of containers. So we'll look a little deeper, but I do want to warn you, if you live in an HOA controlled subdivision, that this picture here on the upper right is probably not going to be in compliance. You get one of those letters. So we have clay containers. Clay containers are terracotta or glazed. You can see some examples here. Clay containers are porous, so they allow for good airflow. They allow for water to not sit too long on the plants. And if it's unglazed, you can paint it with a simple can of spray paint, or if you're really artsy, you can use some acrylic paint, anything that can handle the elements if it's going to be outdoors. And they're heavier than a lot of pots, so they're more sturdy. They can hold your plants steady. On the other hand, because they are porous, they need a little more irrigation than, say, a plastic pot might need. And then they do break and they will freeze. So you have to be careful with that with clay. For wood containers, they're a lot of fun. You can use whiskey barrels, wood boxes. You can make them yourself. Uh, Wood containers aren't affected by frost, so you don't have to worry about bringing them in when it's cold. And they can be painted or stained to match your decor, but you need to be careful because wood will rot if it's not treated, and you will need to maintain them to avoid rot even if they are treated. So stone containers are absolutely beautiful. They're made out of concrete or granite, other stone or brick. Um, they're non-porous, so they tend to hold water. That can be an advantage or a disadvantage. They're very strong and durable, and they come in all kinds of shapes and sizes. They are heavy, and that makes them hard to move. So you might want to put it in its final resting place and leave it there. They can be very expensive as well. Metal containers come in all kinds of different shapes and sizes and colors, that which makes them fun, but they are prone to rust and they can become scratched or dented. And if they're not finished properly, they can have sharp edges. So synthetic containers are made out of plastic, polymers, fiberglass, or resins. The advantages of these are they're tough but lightweight, they're inexpensive, and they're frostproof. But they might not age well, and they can look a little cheap. I can tell you, you can extend their length with some spray paint. So there are a lot of other types of containers. We can't even fathom getting into all of the different things you can use of containers. But here are some examples of off containers, if you will. These first ones, you can have a cute coffee cup that you can put an orchid in. Orchids tend to come in little plastic containers, so you can lift it out to water it. This is my absolute favorite pot, this blue one on the right. It's a globe, and the air plant in it is to look like an octopus. And then certainly there are hanging baskets, and then there are water baskets, if you will, that you can hang on the wall that are fun, and they can lead to propagation. So how do you determine the size of your container? You want one that's going to fit where you're going to place it. You want to choose a size that will be larger than the root balls of the plants that you will place there. If it's too small, the plants will become root bound. If it's too large, the plant roots will have difficulty reaching the water. Another consideration in the size of a container is your ability to move it. While bigger pots are heavier and showier, you might have trouble moving them around. Smaller pots are easy to move, but they require more attention because they will need more irrigation and fertilization. If you go with heavy pots, there are pot helpers to help you lift them. This first picture here, it shows straps that are like what moving guys use to put around heavy things to lift, and takes two people and really allows you to move it. Two-wheel trucks work as well. You can also put your pots on a rolling caddy. You can find those all over the place. But you should also make sure that your pot will be able to drain. So you can buy feet, you can make feet for your pots. I have a bunch of like 2x2 and 3x3 pieces of composite decking material that I stick under pots. And a lot of times you're going to want to put a tray under them because you don't want water to stain your surface, whatever it is. But even in a tray like this one that's pointed at, you need to put feet underneath it to ensure you don't block the drainage. If you choose to use a pot that doesn't have any drain holes in it, you can drill new drain holes in it. Best practices here are to place a pot on cardboard to give it some cushion. You would turn it upside down to do that. You can also put it right side up on your lawn, and that will cushion it, but it has to be big enough for you to get the drill in to do that. Mark your spot with tape or a marker, and always wear eye protection when you're going to use drilling. Keep your vision safe. And then drill it. If you're doing clay or stone, you need to pour water on that, and be sure you're using the right bit. There are masonry bits and metal bits. You probably can't put too many drainage holes in a pot. So an example would be a 5-inch pot should have maybe 4 drainage holes. This is where you want to err on the side of too many pots. You want to get that water not sitting in the bottom of those pots. So if you're going to reuse a container, you're going to want to clean and sanitize that container before you use it. This will help reduce fungal and other diseases that might be on the pot. It'll also reduce the number of pests and mineral salts that are on the pot. You want to wipe stuff away, using a gloved hand or a brush or a rag. And then you want to scrub it with soapy water. You can use dishwashing detergent, not dishwasher detergent, dishwashing detergent. And then you need to sanitize it. And the best way to sanitize that is to soak it for 10 minutes in a solution of 1 part bleach to 9 or 10 parts of water. And then scrape anything that doesn't come off of that after that. You can also use household product to eliminate hard water spots that might be affecting your pot. So now the fun part, you get to choose plants. You want to make sure they're going to fit your pot. And if you're going to mix plants, you want to make sure they have the same light, water, and fertilization requirements. It's fun to pick different kinds of plants, and we'll get into that in a minute. I did want to point out that you can also pick a pot to fit your plants, which is what I do. I rarely buy a pot and then figure out what I'm going to put in it. Usually I have plants that I got to figure out what pot they'll fit in. So I have leveraged the next few slides from Master Gardener in Harris County, Paul Winsky. He put out a paper on container gardening. And so he put this together. I thought it was so good. I just copied it from him, and want to give him credit for this. So when you're picking color, you can pick the colors that are like right next to each other on the wheel and have an analogous grouping. You can go monochromatic and use, all pinks or all blues or all yellows. I will tell you, most pollinators like purple, so purple's a good way to go. And then you can do complementary, which are colors that are on the opposite ends of the color wheel here. And then you've probably heard about thrill, fill, and spill. So with the thrill, you want that to be your primary plant in a pot. Usually it's the bigger or the taller, most showier plant in your container. And Paul has taken some pictures. If you want to snap a quick picture of this screen, you can do so, of potential thrillers. These are some examples of fillers. These are the plants that will go around your thriller to fill up the pot. And then you've got your spillers, and spillers just bring a lot of drama as they flow over the side of your pot. So before you plant your plants, you need to decide what you're going to plant them in. Two common ways to go are potting mix or garden soil. You don't want to use garden soil. So most potting mix contains ingredients like sphagnum moss, bark, perlite, vermiculite, compost, or and maybe some fertilizer, slow release fertilizer or water retention beads, also known as hydrogels. Um, it does not have any soil in it. It is a mix of, it's a soilless mix. Garden soil, on the other hand, is a mixture of topsoil, compost, and other organic materials. Potting mix should be used in containers or when starting seeds, and garden soil should be used in raised beds and the ground. You'll also find topsoil, and topsoil is really cheap. It really should only be used for filling holes or if you're going to mix your own garden soil. So I wanted to get in a little bit to some of the different potting media that we have. This first one on the left is an orchid mix. Orchids are non-woody perennial plants and are generally terrestrial or epiphytic herbs. That just means they grow on other plants. They don't grow in soil. They absorb water from the surrounding air. They need a quick draining mix that usually includes bark, perlite, sphagnum moss, or coconut husks. And the amount of these depends on the type of orchid you're going to grow. Perlite is a natural occurring mineral in the form of amorphous volcanic gas. It is not good to inhale perlite dust, so always wear a mask when you're working with it. And then your potting mix, this the third one from the left, comes in many varieties, but they usually contain peat moss or coconut coir for moisture retention, perlite or vermiculite to improve drainage and aeration, compost for nutrients, and some have slow release fertilizer and beneficial microbes. The fourth one is the plumeria mix, and a lot of people mix their own, and my recipe has potting mix, sand, perlite, worm castings, and I throw in some fertilizer in there, sometimes a little bone meal. And you can see the difference in all of these media. The vermiculite is a yellow-brown mineral found as an alteration product of mica and other minerals. It's used for moisture retention and when you're growing plants. And then you can have cactus and succulent mix. And there are different types of cactus and succulent mix depending on the type of plant and what it needs, how dry it really needs to get. But most of those mixes contain a potting mix with pumice, perlite, lava rock, and coarse sand. So now you get to plant your plants. A lot of people have put rocks or gravel at the bottom of their pots, but recent research indicates that that will block, it's more likely to block your drainage. So if you want to put something in there, you can put a tight screen or landscape fabric. Honestly, I don't put anything in the bottom of the pots. I find that very little of my potting mix goes out. But a screen will help keep ants and other insects from crawling up through the drainage holes. And you want to pre-moisten your mix whenever you're planting anything, frankly. And then when you put the potting mix in the bottom of the pot and then set your plants so that the top of the plant, the existing potting media, will be 1 to 3 inches from the top of the container. Then you fill in the sides, tap it down, and then top dress if you want with mulch, moss, or if you're doing succulents, you can put rocks. That's what you see here. There are rocks on top of this just to give it a little more flair, if you will. And then once you finish transplanting, always water thoroughly. I wanted to show you an example of reusing a pot and ways that you can plant it. So this pot here on the left, you can see that the blue is it's a synthetic pot. So the blue is peeling off of it. It's looking real tired and old. Cleaned it out really well and then soaking it in a 1 part bleach 10 parts water solution. And because it's a large pot in a small soaking tub, I had to turn it 90 degrees every 10 or 15 minutes. Then I let it dry, and then I took a planting bag. These planting bags come in all different sizes. I filled that with the correct potting mix and put a little baby sago in it and this variegated potato vine, and then set that bag in the pot. This is the pot that was spray painted. I think I forgot to tell you, I spray painted the pot after it was cleaned. And then I used an Oya with a wine bottle full of water for irrigation. And we'll talk about Oyas a little bit more in just a minute. So once your plants are planted in your planter, you're going to go into maintenance mode. Potted plants typically need more irrigation than plants in the ground. They're going to dry out more frequently. The potting media is going to drain well, and a lot of your pots are porous. The way to know if your plant needs water is to use your finger, stick it in about an inch into the potting mix. If it's dry, you should add water. You can also use a moisture meter. That is a picture of a moisture meter in a pot on the left side here, and that also can tell you if your plant is starting to dry. You should always use tepid or cool water, which is really important in the summertime. If you're watering from a hose, that water can start off really hot, so be careful with that. When you water a potted plant, you should fully saturate it. The water should run out of the bottom. And if it doesn't run out of the bottom, you need to make sure that your drain holes aren't blocked. If it's running out of the pot too quickly, it may mean that the potting medium got too dry. And if that's the case, the water doesn't even absorb into the mix. It will run straight out. So you'll have to kind of loosen the mix a little bit, and keep watering so that it can take in that water. You can also periodically create channels as it goes through a pot when it's been potted for a while. You can, and then again, the water won't be retained and available to the roots of your plant. So you can take a fork and just kind of turn the top inch or so of potting mix, and that'll help break up those tunnels. All right, Oyas. Told you we'd talk about them. So Oyas, Ollas is pronounced Oyas. They're terracotta containers, and as we talked about, terracotta is porous and water can leach out. Um, these are often found when you're looking for vacation watering devices and what have you online. Depending on your situation, you may only need to fill those Oyas once every week to 10 days. I recommend the green wine bottles because they are less likely to grow algae. If you use a clear bottle of some sort, your tendency is to grow algae in that. And while Oyas are really convenient, and especially if you have a very tropical plant that likes to stay moist all the time, you do need to be careful. A lot of plants like to dry out between waterings, and an Oya might keep it too moist. So just be careful. I use them a lot when I go on vacation. So fertilizing your plants, because they're watered so frequently, you really need to make sure you fertilize regularly. Always, always, always read the label of the fertilizer you're using. There are a lot of different types. There are fertilizers for specific types of plants. And when you select, we don't recommend the watering spikes. I know they're very convenient, but we find that they tend to let fertilizer in just the area around the spikes. So you can use a liquid, you can use granular. If you use granular, you might want to mix it in the top of your soil. Liquid fertilizer is the easiest because it can be added to the water when you're irrigating. It can also be added to the oya when you're irrigating that way. Be careful not to over fertilize or you can burn your plants. And some people like to fertilize half dose, but twice as often. Um, a good rule of thumb is to not fertilize sick plants. Get your plant healthy before you fertilize it. And then seafood fertilizer is really good, but I highly recommend you not use it indoors and not use it if you're going to be spending time in the very near future in your yard. It is quite smelly. Um, Potted plants will get pests, and we like to treat with a progression from least drastic to most drastic. This is better for the environment, has been proven to be most effective. So you can start by washing the plant thoroughly with a spray of water. If it's an indoor plant, you can take it outdoors to do it. You can put it in the shower. Outdoors, obviously, take the hose and spray it with as hard a spray as the plant seems to be able to handle. And that will frequently just wash the pests off. If they're still there, you can use cotton ball or a cotton swab with rubbing alcohol, put that on each one. That works really well for mealybug, by the way. And then you'll need to rinse the plant off after you put a lot of alcohol on it. And then if that's not successful, you'll need to spray it with insecticidal soap. And if you still have pests, you can use neem oil or orange oil, but you need to be very careful with how much sun is out. Those oils will sunburn the plant. Um, Keep in mind that pests typically have a life cycle, and you'll need to do whatever treatment you are doing 2 or 3 times to try and get from the egg larva adult stage off your plant. And if all of these are unsuccessful, you may lose the plant or you will need to learn to love the pest. So when to repot? Well, if the roots are growing out of the bottom of the pot, that's a good indication. Another symptom is if the plant stops growing or stops flowering, it may mean that the roots can't sustain the growth and the nutrients that are needed for flowering. Um, and if water is running completely out, like we talked about with irrigation. In general, you're going to want to repot every 1 or 2 years. But if you're not sure, lift the plant out of the pot and look. If it looks like this picture, you definitely need to repot it. So how do you repot it? Well, you're going to remove the pot plant out of its existing container. It may be stuck. The roots may be stuck to the side. So remove it with a knife or a flat garden tool. You just kind of scrape around it and use a clean pot. And, like we talked about earlier, you're going to put moist potting mix in the bottom of the pot. If you're going to use a screen, put that in first. And then seat, when you take the plant out of the pot, you're going to want to remove some of the planting mix from around the roots and tease those roots out a little bit. It'll help them grow better and it'll add more air to them. It doesn't hurt to cut some of those roots if it's really root bound. Then set it in. You want to set it so that the top of the plant existing is about 2 inches from the top, and then fill in the sides, tamping it down gently. Then water it well. If that potting mix settles low, add more, water again, and then you can add a topping if you desire. All right, now's a good time for questions, Rochelle, as we get into examples, if there are any.
We do not have any questions. We just have a few comments and tips.
Okay.
Nothing at the moment.
Okay. Feel free to let me know if any questions come in. Um, so,
Sorry.
okay.
Okay. We got them now. Um,
Okay.
best season to repot.
Everything seems to work better in the spring. It just does. Everything's growing new life. You can repot anytime, but spring seems to be the best if you're doing a routine repot.
And um, also, I don't know, just a comment about repotting. When I repot, I try to keep it in the shade for like a day or two, maybe not in the full sun back where it goes,
That's a
until it
good
kind of,
practice.
until it kind
Mm.
of gets used to the roots being manhandled and all the things.
Let it recover a little bit.
Let it recover a little bit. It does wonders.
Yes.
I think there was confusion. There needs some clarification. How do you use the wine bottles for watering?
Okay, so in the Oyas, you push the Oyas, you just kind of twist them into the soil as deeply as you can go. Hopefully the top of the Oya is at the top of the soil line. And then you fill the wine bottle with water and you tip that over real quickly into the Oya. And you'll be able to watch the water. It'll stay in the wine bottle and slowly it will the level will go down until all the water has leached into the plant. And it should take days. And I should mention too, if it's a big pot, you might want to use 3 Oyas. And using wine bottles in Oyas is always fun when you have company because they come over and they go, "What's with the wine bottles?" And I tell them I'm very optimistic that I'm going to start growing wine. So,
It's a good one. That's a good one, Shelley.
all right.
Um, you may be about to answer this question in the next part, but maybe not. But are there any plants that you do not recommend for containers?
No. I mean, some plants that grow really fast and really tall, like a moringa, uh, it they grow so fast and so tall, it would be hard to grow in a container. And let it get to where it's going to produce seeds, which is what you want from a moringa plant in the first place. I planted years ago, I planted a magnolia tree seed in a pot and it it grew but it stayed small until I finally put it in the soil. It's out there now and it's growing quite well. So trees, not so much. And we will talk about citrus because citrus is is a challenge in our Fort Bend County area because of our cold. So, um, you when you plant citrus in pots, you can bring it in. You can keep, or they're more easily covered. Um, in our demonstration gardens, we have citrus in ground, and we are experimenting with different ways to keep it going. We planted them, about a year and a half ago, and they survived this last winter. So we'll see if we get production.
Hey, and kind of along the same lines, are there any problems with growing vegetables in containers?
Oh, we're going to talk about that, and I'll show you some. You can grow most vegetables. I'm not sure. Well, corn would be difficult in a container. Again, if they get really big, and corn also requires a lot of pollination, so you need a lot of corn so that it gets pollinated well. I wouldn't try corn in a container.
Any suggestions for dwarf fruit trees that could be put in pots?
Yeah, dwarf fruit trees work really well. And in February, we have, excuse me. We have our annual fruit tree sale. So we sell fruit trees that are appropriate for Fort Bend County, and we sell citrus there, and some of them are dwarf. So I highly recommend you putting that on your calendar. Can't remember what day. It'll be sometime around Valentine's Day, the 11th, 12th.
We'll post it in the chat, the date.
Okay, excellent.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Somebody did have a question if there's a container gardening class specifically about vegetables, and Shelley will talk a little bit about it, but at this point we don't have one exclusively for it, but this is a great item to put in the survey that you take at the end of the class. So please do that. And then last question before we move on. Do you have to pull plumerias out of the pots for winter?
You have to pull the plumerias out from outdoors. So I pull them out of the pots. If they're small, I bring the pots in the garage, but most of my plumerias are larger and I pull them right out of the pot, put them in a trash can in the garage, and it takes up a lot of garage. As we talked about, I have a little bit of a problem with plumeria. So,
I
but
know
yes.
a lot of people have your addiction.
There's a
Okay.
whole Facebook site.
Okay, we're good on questions. So
Okay.
you can
Okay.
continue.
Thanks,
Thank
Rochelle.
you.
I wanted to show you some examples here of some containers. This first one under the flag is a really nice container. It's got a big shrub as the thrill. It's got marigolds as the fill, and then it's got creeping Jenny coming down the side as the spill. And then this is a basket. You do thrills spill a little differently with a horizontal basket like this, but we do. This is my neighbor, and she does have this pretty dichondra growing down. Last year in these baskets, she hosted a wren and a nest, and babies came and then they flew away. And then this one on the right is an example of using a large pot with a plant in it to cover a manhole cover that's in the middle of the lawn so it doesn't stand out so much. And then this bottom picture just shows how you can group plants. Even if you have a lot of bedding plants, you can still group your pots. And then some other ideas. This is an example of a palm. It's in a really big pot, and the pot's hard to move. It takes a two-wheel truck to move it. But this palm is in a 10-gallon planter bag. So when it starts getting cold, we can just lift that bag out and bring it in and put it in a different pot in the house to get through the winter. This upper right-hand picture is a bed with a lot of different plants in it, but several of these plants are in pots because they can't handle the winter, and I want to bring them in. But you can work your pots in. You can just set them in the ground, or you can dig a little bit of a hole and put them in there. If it's a little bit taller of a plant, it'll keep it from blowing over. I do that with most of my plumerias. We call it plunging. So with the hole maybe halfway, three-quarters of the way up on the pot, when the winds come, it doesn't blow over. And then this is a metal container that does not have drainage holes in it. So there are a lot of rocks at the bottom of this pot, and the three succulents that are in this bucket are in individual pots so that I can periodically make sure there's not water sitting in the bottom. Without drain holes, you have to be really, really careful of not overwatering. Um, Other ways to do container plants, this one on the left is just three different textures, completely different colors, just for fun. The one on the right has a real thrill with canna lilies. I'm trying to avoid canna lilies in the ground because I found myself having to go next door and remove them from my neighbors' yards. They reproduce quickly. And then we used some pots down here on the lower one. Underneath those bricks are irrigation controls at our demonstration gardens. And at one of our butterfly celebrations, we didn't want to risk people tripping over those bricks, so we placed pots on them. And then here's an example of mixing plants. And we'll talk a little bit more about edibles, but in this, you're going to see 3 citrus trees right in here, um, then pretty things, and then a plumeria. Over here, we have tomatoes and basil. And I'll talk more about that shortly. 3 more ideas here. This one on the left is all green, monochromatic, but totally different textures. And I had a bird bath base that needed something, so it got these plants. And this one in the middle, maybe it's a homage to all our Aggies out there with the maroon canna lily and the gray dichondra down there. And this just shows, this one on the right just shows that you can have plants next to flowers and a cute dog that likes to soak up vitamin D. So here we're going to look at some edibles. The top left picture is a key lime that is producing. The top right is a New Zealand lemonade plant. It's really nice lemons. They're quite sweet. It's actually a hybrid of a lemon and an orange tree. And you can see that they're producing and they're in pots. And then down here, this is a picture of our fruit garden at the demonstration gardens. And these 3 containers are pretty unique. These are blueberries. Blueberries need a real acidic soil. So they typically will not produce in the alkaline soil that we have here in Fort Bend County. So putting these containers that are open at the bottom, so we don't have to worry about too much water in them. And then we can fill them with acidic soil or mixes like pine bark and peat moss. And then we plant the blueberries in there. This picture's from last year, and they are producing this year. So it's a fun way to do it. And then when you're talking about edibles, and if you had a chance to attend our Grow Your Own last weekend, there are companion plants that help vegetables and what have you avoid some of the insects. And basil is one that really helps tomatoes. So these are patio tomatoes. There's a cherry tomato there also. And I just put a couple of basil plants tucked right next to them. And I've been harvesting and I've had no leaf-footed bugs that plagued me last year. So companion planting can work with edibles. So in summary, do we have any more questions, Michelle?
Sorry. Somebody asked about the Plumeria Facebook group, and somebody answered and just verifying if that's what it is. Houston, Plumeria, and Adenium addicts. Is that it?
Yes, that's
Okay.
it. Really good information on there. There are several master gardeners from Galveston County that are part of that one, and a lot of knowledge, a lot of experience there.
Okay, that's it right now.
Okay. So container gardening allows plants that you need to protect. Then it also allows you to have a garden in hard surface areas, be it your patio, your porch, a balcony. You should match the plant to the pot, or if you're me, you match the pot to the plant. You always should use clean and sanitized pots and a good potting media for the kind of plants you're going to plant. Make sure you water properly. You don't need to necessarily water every day, although sometimes during our heated summers you might have to if your plants are sitting out in full sun. Fertilizer is very important in potted plants. And then repot as the plant needs it. Watch out for pests and disease and have fun. Container gardening is a whole lot of fun. So we have some upcoming classes. The next Grow Your Own, which is an in-person class on Saturdays. June 13th, we're going to do fall garden prep and composting. August 8th, cool season vegetables and herbs. That gives you enough time to prepare for the cool season veggies to come available. And then we are in the process of picking our topics for 2027. So when I put up the QR code, please give us ideas on things you would like to learn more about. The next two, landscape success, that's what this class is today. June 26th is shade gardening, and August 21st will be fall landscape maintenance. And I'd like to throw a shout out to our demonstration gardens. Our demonstration gardens are created to show the community what can be done in different types of gardens and to allow the master gardeners to experiment. So when we talk to you, we can give you not only the science-based information, we can tell you about our own experiences. Our demonstration gardens include the fruit tree garden I showed you. We have an herb garden, a veggie garden, shade garden, tree trail, Texas Superstar Garden, Butterfly Garden, HOA Garden. I think I hit them all. And those gardens are open every day during daylight hours. You can go tour. We're about to install some new signs out there that'll help you take a tour. And I should add that we work in those gardens on Wednesday mornings. So master gardeners tend to like to talk. So, feel free to come out while we're working and we'll be happy to talk with you. If you have any questions, first of all, about Fort Bend Master Gardeners, fbmg.org gets you to our website, and it has our upcoming classes. It has links to our help desk. It has links to articles and past classes. And then if you're doing a search for anything, if you've got a plant and you want to know how to take care of it, you type in that plant name and then do .edu or .tamu, and you will get to either the A&M website, the AgriLife website, or another university website. You're going to find research-based information and not other people's opinions. And if you get A&M, you're going to get more for the Texas area. And then if you have questions, you have a problem, you don't know what's going on with not just your container plants, but any of your plants, take pictures, send it to Fort Bend MG at fbmg.org. And we staff a help desk Monday through Friday, 9 to 12. But if you submit that at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, we're going to get it first thing in the morning and we'll do some research and give you some answers. Any other questions? Oh, you're muted. You're muted, Rochelle.
I'm sorry. Okay, yes, we have a question. A few
Okay.
questions. Are containers suggested for small cut flowers?
For like plants that you're going to cut?
That question was from Tori. If Tori wants to unmute.
Hi.
Hi,
Hi,
Tori.
I just like growing flowers that I can cut for
Oh,
like small bouquets inside
mm-hmm,
my house.
mm-hmm.
But just wasn't sure if it was suggested, or like what kind of flowers are suggested
Oh,
for good
just
cut.
about any kind of flowers, what you like to cut, if it's okay to grow in our area at the time. So, zinnias are really pretty cut,
Hmm.
and those grow like crazy here. And yes, they can be grown in pots.
Okay,
And
perfect.
you want to with zinnias, I would throw a few seeds in the pot
Okay.
and, and tap them down. I mean, they tend to flower in about 30, 40 days. But lots of different flowering plants can be grown. And if it doesn't say so on the package, you can search and just end it with TAMU, and you'll probably find more information on growing that in a container.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
Another question, how to protect potted plants in freezes if you cannot move them indoors?
You can cover them, and depending on how sensitive and how important the plant is to you. So I do have a split leaf philodendron that I like a lot. It's in a big pot, and I will just cover that with some frost cloth and a sheet. And that has worked so far. It sits kind of close to the house, so there may be some radiant heat that helps it. You can also, I know some people with plumerias that are in ground will wrap them in the old-fashioned Christmas lights that, put out heat, and then cover those in a frost cloth or a blanket or something to retain the heat. And that works unless you have a power fail like we did in 21. So you can just cover it. Remember that if it's a plant that is not a pot that is not frost resistant, like a clay pot, you need to cover the pot too. So you can kind of keep some warmth around that pot, not have it crack.
Okay, next question. Can you repeat the plumeria potting mixture?
Sure. Every person on that attic site has their own mix. Some people will use a cactus mix, a citrus and cactus mix in theirs. I usually put a good potting mix. You can find potting mixes all over. I get a good potting mix, and then I use sand and perlite, and I put a little worm casing in there, throw a little fertilizer, maybe some bone meal, mix it up. The first three ingredients, the potting mix, the sand, and the perlite, are almost equal parts. You want something that really drains, and plumeria do like to get a little bit dry in between waterings. Otherwise, they risk rotting.
Okay. I put a last call for questions.
Okay. Don't be shy.
We have some comments, just some other comments, what people do for, so no questions at the moment, but I do want to just reiterate the screen we have here on the screen we have up for the survey. Again, if you could please fill out the survey. As Shelly said, we are planning our new classes soon, and we actually do go through every single line item in those surveys of feedback when we're planning classes and improving classes. So we do use them. We do appreciate your feedback. And we also hope to see you next month for our next landscape success class. And we thank you so much, Shelly, for your presentation. It was an excellent presentation. And I know what I wanted to say very quickly to everybody before we end the class. And that is, if you have not heard, this weekend is Gardener's Tax-Free Weekend in Texas. So that does include mulch, compost, plants, irrigation. You can look it up online for everything that it does include, but that is this weekend. So it's tax-free Gardener's Weekend this weekend for Memorial.
Yay!
This weekend, Memorial Day weekend in Texas. So that's pretty cool. Thank you again, Shelly. We very much so appreciate it. And we hope to see you all next month.
Thank you, Michelle. Thank you, everybody, for joining in. Have a great weekend.
Thank you,
Shelley.
you all too. We can stop recording.